In 2008, our 15-year-old son Cameron, it was April, before Anzac Day, a week before Anzac Day, and he was 15. He'd been unwell for quite a few months. He was always telling me, oh, I'm tired, and so we were always looking at what was wrong with him, but we could never figure it out. He just kept saying he's tired, and I used to give him some days off school. I'd let him, but I wouldn't tell my husband. So I would, just let him have days off when he didn't feel like he could be at school. Anyway, this one particular day I was at work at Queensland Transport, and I get a phone call from the arts teacher at Alex Hills High School. She says to me, I'm going to send Cameron home. I don't think he's very well. And I said, no, he's not well. I had my faith, but I wasn't really walking with the Lord at that time. And I said to her, okay, I turned to one of the girls at work and I said, I'm not coming in tomorrow. I said, there's something really wrong with Cameron. I don't know what it is. I went home. He came home from school. He was lying on the couch and I was in the bathroom and he came into me and he said to me, Mum, I don't feel right. And I said, no, son, I don't know what it is. I said, but we're going to get it sorted. We're going to work it out. I had been taking him to the doctor. I had been taking him to the clinic at Capalaba. They kept telling me to put him on a diet because he was putting on weight and that he had a virus and they couldn't do anything for it. So basically, I was being just told, it's your problem. You need to deal with it. He's putting on weight and you need to put him on a diet. I'm like, but he's not eating any more than any of the other kids. So anyway, it came to, it was the Wednesday and I went into the doctor's clinic at Capalaba. I didn't get into my normal doctor that I go to, which was probably a good thing, because I walked in and said, there is something wrong with my son. You must do a blood test on him. And they said, yeah, okay. And then someone had said to me, you should get a blood culture, but I didn't know about that at the time. So I said, he needs a blood test. They said, okay. So they did the blood test. I went home. By that afternoon, or the next day, I get a phone call from the doctors and they said, we've got a letter here, you've got to take it to Redlands Hospital. So I get down to Redlands Hospital with him, take him down there, and his white cell count, the blood count was wrong and everything like that. They put him in a bed and they put a fan on him for 2 days. And I spoke to a nurse friend and she said, you need to get him to the PA. So I went in and I said to them, if you don't get my son up to the PA, we're going to take him in the car and take him up. Because in the meantime, his body was blowing up. It was getting bigger and bigger because it's a thing called Burkitt's lymphoma. And it's a very aggressive cancer, but it's a cancer apparently that they can kill quickly. Anyway, we get him to the PA. They get him in there, he's in there, and it was the Friday and the Saturday was Anzac Day, so none of the oncologists were there. So they got them all back in. God had placed them all to come back in. They all came back in on that Saturday, and they wheeled him into us to go in to have the biopsy, and he was lying there and he said to me, Mum, what's wrong with me? And I said, I don't know, son. I said, but we're going to pray over you. So I stood there praying over him. And then the nurse came in and said, is there anything you're worried about, Cameron? And he said, is it going to hurt? But they had basically told us that we don't even think your son's going to make it through the biopsy. Sorry, but we don't even think he's going to live through it because his whole body had just been blown up and blown up. He'd been left sort of too long to have the testing done. Anyway, they wheeled him off. Abide in Me was playing on the TV as they wheeled him away, and when they came back, I was standing in where they wheeled him into ICU, and I'm standing there. As they wheeled him past me, they were pumping his heart because what had happened is he died on the table because of a kidney blocker that they put in, and they raced him in. He went into anaphylaxis, and I was just standing there praying, and then the next thing we were allowed to go in after a small period of time. They had him ventilated and sedated for 10 days. But in that meantime, the doctors came to us and said, sorry, but if he doesn't start producing urine, he's not going to make it. And I went, oh, really? I just can't believe this. So I collapsed in the hospital. They told us we had to go home and have a rest. I was lying on my bed and I just said, God, if Cameron's yours, if you want to take him, take him. I don't want him to suffer. He belongs to you. So if that's what has to happen, take him, take him. And after I'd said that, I picked up my Bible and opened up with Psalm 103 verse 3. I, the Lord God who heals all diseases. And I went, he's not going to die. He's not going to die. God had told me he's not going to die. So I raced out to Wayne and I said, Wayne, Cameron's not going to die. And he looked at me and he goes, what are you talking about? They've told us. And I said, no, he's not going to die. We get a phone call. You've got to come in. We can't believe it, but Cameron's producing urine. And so because of the producing of the urine, he was able to then, they were able to pump huge amounts of chemo that they had to do. Well, we knew that. And every day we'd go in and every day his body would go down further and further. And you could actually see his body coming down. Again, they use Cameron's as a test in the university. They're still using it because someone had spoken to him. Now, he's 32, he lives in Western Australia with his fiancée. And he told me, if God loved me, why did he give me cancer? And I'm like, so he's completely turned his back on God altogether. So we keep praying that him and Emma will get saved. That's all we can do. And I'm going over to see him, God willing, in a few weeks. So I know God saved him. I know God brought him through this for whatever reason. Because at 3 years old, he fell through a window. And the way he fell through the window was all jagged around it. And we pulled him through, and we know that angels were holding him up because there is no way he would have survived, because most kids, when they fall back, they just fall right back, and he didn't. I had a major breakdown when I had Cameron, and I was in hospital, and so there was many, many things that could have happened there when I had him. So God has, I know, protected him and protected our family through all this, and we know that... We know how much he loves us and cares for us. We don't know why some people I know who have lost their loved ones, have lost children. But when I tell them about Cameron, I've had a lady contact me when I was on a bus trip, and her 8-year-old granddaughter had her big balloon, a helium balloon. Never let your kids have helium balloons in their bedroom, because she wanted to see how it worked, and she opened it up and she sucked it all in, and she died immediately at 8 years of age. I gave my testimony to her about Cameron, and then a year later she contacted me and told me what had happened to her grandchild. And we keep in contact all the time, and I'm able to send things to her, and because it is the process of having to deal with that over a long period of time is very, very hard. And she said, I remembered you told me about Cameron. And so we've kept in contact, and we still keep in contact. And I send her books and because they're a Catholic background. And she said to me, I just see Sienna in the wall. And I said, no, she's not there. She's with Jesus. She's not in that wall you go to where that rose is. She's not there. She's with the Lord. So, yeah. So God uses that really tough stuff in our life, doesn't he? To keep us close to him, hey, yeah.